In the dark of night in New York, Blake Ryder, a deep-cover CIA agent, receives orders to eliminate a nuclear arms trafficking organization led by Roman Ivanov from Russia. He meets Cole Fletcher, a wanted former Navy SEAL, and the two are forced to cooperate despite their deep-seated mistrust, starting with a fake explosion to distract the city's security. Boom! The explosion echoed through the damp alley in Brooklyn. Black smoke billowing up from an abandoned truck. Blake Ryder dashed out from the shadows, his rain-soaked leather jacket clinging to him, gripping the Glock handgun hidden beneath his belt. His heart raced, not from fear, but from the adrenaline surging through him. This was not a real explosion, just a homemade smoke bomb to divert the local police. But in his world, anything could turn real in the blink of an eye. Blake scanned the deserted street, the neon lights from bar signs shimmering on the wet pavement, reflecting like splattered blood. He knew New York at night well, a city that never sleeps, but also filled with dark corners where crime ran rampant. The order from the CIA came abruptly: eliminate Roman Ivanov, the Russian mafia boss smuggling nuclear weapons from Russia to America. Roman was not just an ordinary criminal, he had a network stretching from Moscow to Manhattan, with dozens of bribed officials. Blake, with 3 years of deep experience in the underworld, was the perfect choice. But this time, he was not going alone. A shadow moved from across the street, footsteps light as a cheetah. Cole Fletcher emerged under the sickly yellow streetlight, his chiseled face marked by a long scar running down his right cheek, his cold blue eyes scanning Blake as if assessing a foe. Cole had once been an elite Navy SEAL, but now he was wanted for a fabricated betrayal, at least according to the CIA's records. Blake had been instructed to cooperate with Cole to reach Roman, but trust it did not exist. "Are you Ryder?" Cole whispered, his hoarse voice bearing the traces of years on the battlefield. His hand was tucked into his jacket pocket, but Blake knew well that beneath that fabric lay a sharp dagger. Blake nodded briefly, his eyes never leaving Cole. "Fletcher, I heard you took down an entire Taliban squad by yourself. What now?" Working for the CIA, Cole smirked derisively, disdain evident. "I don't work for anyone. Just common interests. Roman Ivanov killed my brother in Russia. I want his head." The tension hung between the two like a noose. Blake sensed the danger from Cole. This man was not easily controlled. He recalled the dossier. Cole was accused of betrayal during a mission in Afghanistan, leading to the death of his comrades. But the CIA suspected it was a plot by Roman to eliminate a threat. Now, they were forced to trust each other, at least temporarily. They moved quickly through the alley, avoiding the patrol car lights blaring from afar. The fake explosion had drawn the police to the loop, several blocks away, where Roman had a secret warehouse. The initial plan: Blake would pose as a smuggler, approaching Roman's underlings to gather information about the upcoming shipment of nuclear weapons to New York. Cole would support from the shadows, using his combat skills. But just as they neared the warehouse, an old building with cracked concrete walls, the smell of rust and machine oil wafting, everything went awry. 3 of Roman's henchmen stepped out from the back door, dressed in black coats, guns in hand. They were not ordinary patrols. They were waiting for someone. Blake signaled for Cole to hide behind a trash can, his heart racing faster. "They know we're coming," he whispered. Cole did not respond, only drew his dagger, the blade glinting in the moonlight. Without waiting for orders, he lunged forward like a ghost. The first thug barely had time to turn around before Cole locked his neck from behind, a quick twist bringing him down without a sound. The second thug drew his gun, but Blake was quicker. He delivered a precise taekwondo kick to the wrist, sending the gun flying, then punched straight to the face with a kung fu strike. Blood splattering. The third thug screamed, firing a shot that grazed Blake's shoulder. tearing his jacket. It hurt. But Blake did not stop. He charged in, using jiu-jitsu to lock the thug's arm, smashing his head against the concrete wall. The sound of breaking bones echoed sharply, followed by a deathly silence. Cole dusted off his hands, looking at Blake with a mix of suspicion and respect. Not bad. But if you lead me into a trap, I'll cut your throat myself. Blake wiped the blood from his face, the wound on his shoulder bleeding but not deep. Same here. Now let's go inside and get information about Roman's shipment. They pushed open the warehouse door, the air inside stifling with stacked wooden crates, surely filled with weapons. Blake flipped open a suitcase, finding forged documents, passports and shipping invoices from Russia. Roman was smuggling plutonium across the border, enough to make a nuclear bomb for a major attack. But what sent chills down Blake's spine was a photograph of Elena Hart, his ex-girlfriend, also a CIA officer, standing next to Roman at a party in Moscow. "Is that her?" Cole asked, his voice filled with suspicion as he looked at the photo. Blake clenched his fists, a surge of anger rising within him. Elena, the woman he once loved, once trusted, could now be a traitor, or just a setup. The question gnawed at his mind, complicating everything. They left the warehouse, blending into the darkness of New York, the sound of police sirens still echoing from afar. Blake knew this was just the beginning. Roman Ivanov was not easy to take down, and with Cole by his side, an unwilling ally full of mystery, the hunt would be bloody. But he would not stop, even if faced with betrayal from those closest to him. Which area are you listening to this story from? And what time is it where you are right now? Leave a comment below so I know you are still healthy and fully focused on this story. My dear friend, we will continue right after this. Blake and Cole planned to rob the underground vault in Manhattan, where Roman hid hundreds of millions of dollars in dirty money. They approached Roman's underlings through black market deals. But each meeting nearly turned into a shootout because no one trusted anyone. Blake Ryder woke up in a secret apartment in Manhattan, cold sweat pouring from the wound on his shoulder that was still bleeding. The dim light from the window reflected on the old wooden floor, where he had thrown the photo of Elena Hart standing next to Roman Ivanov. Last night, after leaving the warehouse in Brooklyn, he and Cole had split up to avoid being followed. But that image haunted Blake. Elena, the woman he once loved deeply, could now be a traitor. Had she sold him out to the mafia boss from Russia? That question made him clench his fists, more painful than the grazing bullet wound. He stood up, checking the Glock on the table, loading it with familiar motions. Today was the day of the big plan, robbing Roman's underground vault in downtown Manhattan, where he hid hundreds of millions of dollars from nuclear arms smuggling. Blake knew well that the money was not just gold and silver, it was evidence to expose Roman's network, possibly linked to the CIA. But to succeed, he needed Cole Fletcher, the mysterious man he still did not fully trust. Cole was waiting in a shabby cafe near Times Square, where the bustling crowd concealed all schemes. He sat in a hidden corner, sipping a bitter black coffee, his eyes scanning the glass window at the congested traffic under the glaring sun. The scar on his cheek twitched slightly as he thought of his brother, Roman's victim in Russia. Cole was not the forgiving type. He had been hunting Roman for 3 years, and now the CIA had pushed him to work with Blake, a clean-cut agent who seemed too by the book. If he plays dirty, I'll handle it myself, Cole muttered, his hand brushing the dagger hidden under his jacket. Blake walked into the cafe, sitting across from Cole without greeting. He spread out a map of Manhattan, pointing to a high-rise building in the financial district. The vault is in the basement, heavily secured 6 guards, cameras everywhere, and a laser system. We go in at midnight, using the fake explosion in Brooklyn to draw the police in the opposite direction. Cole nodded, but his eyes were filled with suspicion. Are you sure? How do you know these details? Or does your CIA have an insider? His voice was low but threatening. Blake looked straight into Cole's eyes, feeling the tension rising like a ticking time bomb. I have my own sources. And you? Why not share about the betrayal in Afghanistan? The file says you sold out your comrades to Roman. Cole tightened his grip on the coffee cup, his face flushed with anger. The atmosphere in the cafe suddenly grew heavy, the laughter and chatter around them seeming distant. Cole stood up abruptly, grabbing Blake by the collar. Don't dig up my past. You bastard. Blake remained unfazed, delivering a quick punch to Cole's stomach, causing him to stagger back. But Cole reacted instantly, lunging with a taekwondo kick that struck Blake's shoulder, right on the old wound. It hurt sharply, and Blake spun around, using jiu-jitsu to lock Cole's arm, forcing him against the wall. Customers in the cafe panicked. Some screamed, but neither of them cared. Cole twisted to break free, drawing his dagger for a slash, but Blake dodged just in time, then landed a kung fu punch straight to Cole's face, blood pouring from his nose. They struggled on the cafe floor, overturning tables and chairs, the sound of breaking glass ringing sharply. Cole pinned Blake down, the knife at his throat. Who do you think you are? I could kill you right now. But Blake swept his leg, turning the tables, sitting on Cole with the gun aimed at his head. Stop. We have the same goal. Take down Roman. If we can't trust each other, we both die for sure. They stopped, panting and covered in blood. The owner called the police, but Blake and Cole made a quick exit, melting into the Times Square crowd. They walked in silence for a while under the shimmering neon lights, red and blue reflecting on the wet pavement. Cole wiped blood from his nose, his voice raspy. Fine. But if I find out you're hiding something, you're a dead man. They resumed their planning in a nearby park, where the chirping of sparrows mingled with the sounds of traffic. Blake explained that to access the vault, they needed to meet one of Roman's underlings, a guy named Dimitri, who specialized in fake passports on the outskirts of New York. We'll pose as dealers and trade the passports for intel on the vault. That night, in a vacant lot in Queens, under a bleak, overcast sky, Blake and Cole met Dimitri. He was a large man with a scarred face, standing beside a black SUV with 3 bodyguards. Where are the goods? Dimitri growled in a thick Russian accent. Blake handed over the suitcase of fake passports, opening it for the man to inspect. They're clean. Now, about the vault in Manhattan. What is Roman hiding in there? Dimitri sneered while inspecting the merchandise. Cash. Weapons. But you ask too many questions. He gave a signal, and his 3 bodyguards lunged at them. Cole was the first to react, delivering a spinning kick to one man's chest and sending him sprawling. Blake drew his gun, firing a single shot into the second man's leg, splattering blood everywhere. The third man pulled a knife and slashed at Blake, but he dodged and used kung fu to land several punches to his chest, then locked him in a jiu-jitsu chokehold. Dimitri drew his gun, but Cole charged, slicing the gun strap with his dagger before punching him unconscious. They forced Dimitri to talk. The vault has millions of dollars, but the security is Russian. Lasers and bombs. Roman knows you're hunting him. Blake knocked Dimitri unconscious and retrieved the suitcase. But as they left, Cole turned to him. Elena in the picture. Who is she? Your girlfriend. Blake remained silent, a wave of suspicion washing over him. Elena Hart, a CIA officer, might now be Roman's mole. He needed to see her. But was it a trap? They returned to Manhattan, where darkness enveloped the city like a threat. The plan for the heist was coming together, but the suspicion between Blake and Cole was a ticking time bomb. And Elena? Was she an ally or an enemy? the answer could change everything and lead to even more bloodshed. A sudden ambush in Brooklyn forced them into a life-or-death fight to escape. While on the run, Cole revealed a part of his dark past, leading Blake to suspect he was the demon the CIA had been hunting. The distant wail of police sirens cut through Blake Ryder's chaotic thoughts as he and Cole Fletcher drove away from the vacant lot in Queens. The New York sky was heavy that night, dark clouds hiding the moon, leaving only the shimmering neon glow from faraway skyscrapers. Blake drove the old truck, his hands tight on the wheel, the wound in his shoulder still throbbing from the earlier fight. Elena Hart. The image of her standing beside Roman Ivanov in that photo replayed in his mind like a warning. She was a CIA officer, his former lover, and now, possibly, a traitor. She knows about the Manhattan Vault, Blake muttered, his voice laced with suspicion. Cole sat next to him, cleaning the blood off his dagger while his eyes scanned the rearview mirror. Dmitri talked. The vault has Russian bombs and lasers. Roman isn't stupid. He's expecting us. His voice was calm, but Blake sensed the underlying tension. They were heading to Brooklyn to check a secret rendezvous point where Blake had CIA intel on an incoming nuclear weapons shipment. But the atmosphere between them remained tense after the cafe brawl. Cole wasn't one to forget, and neither was Blake. As the truck crossed the Brooklyn Bridge, a strong wind from the Hudson River blew, carrying the scent of salt and exhaust. Suddenly, two black SUVs charged from behind, their bright headlights glaring in the mirror. "Ambush!" Blake shouted, flooring the accelerator. Gunfire erupted, and a bullet skimmed the windshield, shattering the glass. Cole leaned out the window and fired back with his handgun. Two shots hitting the tires of one SUV, causing it to flip and erupt in flames on the bridge like a nighttime firework. The other SUV stayed close, spraying bullets relentlessly. Blake swerved through the light traffic, tires squealing on the wet road. "They're Roman's men!" Cole yelled as he reloaded. Blake wrenched the wheel, turning into a dark Brooklyn alley filled with old brick walls and overflowing dumpsters. The truck stopped abruptly, and both men leaped out, ducking behind a metal container. Three assassins dressed in black emerged from the SUV, automatic weapons in hand. Blake gave the signal to attack. Cole rushed out first, delivering a taekwondo kick to the nearest man's chest, knocking him to the ground and sending his rifle skittering away. The second man opened fire, but Blake dodged, lunging forward with a series of kung fu strikes to the gut before trapping him in a jiu-jitsu hold and smashing his head into the wall. Blood sprayed, and its coppery scent filled the alley. The third man drew a knife and slashed at Cole, who twisted away and blocked with his dagger, the blades clashing with a sharp ring. Cole pivoted and landed a punch square in his face, breaking his nose. Gasping for breath, they checked the bodies. One assassin was still breathing. Blake pressed the barrel of his gun to the man's head. "Who sent you?" The man gave a bloody grin. "Roman knows everything, and Elena sends her regards." Blake froze, fury surging through him. He shot the man in the leg, making him howl in pain, then whirled on Cole. "Elena, what is she to you?" Cole brushed off his hands, his gaze averted. "It doesn't matter. We need to run." But Blake stepped in his way, aiming his gun at Cole. "Tell me, how do you know her name?" "The CIA file calls you the demon, the traitor in Afghanistan who sold his unit to Roman." The tension in the dark alley became palpable. Cole gripped his knife, his voice deep. "Afghanistan wasn't what you think." He slumped against the wall under a pale yellow streetlight, his voice filled with pain as he spoke. "My younger brother died there, because of Roman. I was framed as a traitor for a cover-up. I've hunted him for 3 years, from Russia all the way here. Elena. I met her in Moscow during a mission. She promised she would help me, But then she vanished. Blake lowered his weapon, but doubt still smoldered inside him. Cole, a wanted man with a newly revealed dark past, could very well be the demon the CIA had been hunting. A double agent. Yet, during the ambush, Cole had saved him twice. Was he an ally or a trap? The question tore at Blake, filling him with a mixture of anger and grim resolve. The sirens were getting closer, so they fled through the narrow alleys, melting into the Brooklyn night. Cole led them to an abandoned garage where he had a spare car hidden. Inside the vehicle, Blake called his CIA source on an encrypted phone. "Is Elena connected to Roman?" The voice on the line was shaky. She could be. Trust no one. Blake. They holed up in a rundown apartment with stained walls and a pervasive smell of mold. Cole dressed his new wounds, his gaze lost in the distance. "I'm not the traitor. Roman killed my brother for plutonium. All I want is justice." Blake nodded, but his hand never strayed far from his gun. The truth about Cole and Elena was slowly unraveling. Yet, each revelation brought them closer to danger. The vault in Manhattan was waiting. But now Roman knew they were coming. Could they survive long enough to pull off the heist? They planned their next move under a weak, yellow light. Blake thought about Elena, his heart aching. She had been his rock, but now she could be his enemy. Cole watched him. "If she sold you out, what are you going to do?" Blake was silent, but his eyes hardened with resolve. This was no longer just about survival. It was about seeking justice in the shadows, no matter the cost in blood. Blake returned to the safe house to meet Elena Hart, his former lover and also his commanding officer at the CIA. But her suspicious messages and avoidant eyes made Blake suspect for the first time that the very woman he loved could be selling him out. After their bloody escape from Brooklyn, Blake Ryder drove through the dark streets of New York, the cold Hudson River wind whipping in through the broken glass. He glanced in the rearview mirror and saw Cole Fletcher sitting silently beside him. Dried blood still smeared on his face. Cole's story about his past, the betrayal in Afghanistan and his link to Roman Ivanov, replayed in Blake's head. "Elena tried to help me once," Cole had said, but his tone was filled with doubt. Blake gripped the steering wheel tighter, his heart twisting. Elena Hart, his ex-lover and CIA handler, was now the biggest mystery. He needed to confront her, even if it was a trap. They parked in an underground garage beneath an old Manhattan building where Blake had a secret apartment. "You going alone?" Cole asked hoarsely, his hand on his dagger. Blake nodded. "Elena is my problem. You stay here and prep for the vault job." Cole sneered. "Watch your back. If she betrays you, I'm not coming to the rescue." Blake said nothing as he stepped into the dark elevator, the air smelling of metal and dust. He thought of Elena, of their nights in Washington, of a warm smile that might have been a mask all along. The apartment was on an upper floor, protected by a heavy steel door with an electronic lock. Blake punched in the code, and the door opened with a creak. Inside, a single dim lamp cast a yellow glow on the simple furnishings, a wooden table, an old sofa, and Elena. She stood there in a black coat, her hair tied up, her blue eyes glistening in the dim light. She turned, a smile flashing on her face before disappearing. "Blake, you're back." Her voice was unsteady, and she gripped her phone tightly. Blake shut the door, scanning the room. Nothing looked out of the ordinary, but his guard was up. "Elena, tell me, how did the assassin know your name and the photo of you standing next to Roman in Russia?" He advanced on her, his voice low and seething with anger. Elena retreated, her eyes darting away. "It was an assignment. I was undercover in Moscow to get close to him. You know how it works." "Blake, please, don't doubt me." But Blake wasn't buying it. He grabbed her arm. Pulling her closer. What about the strange texts on your phone? What are you hiding? Elena wrenched her arm free, her eyes welling up. I'm being blackmailed. Roman has an insider at the CIA. If I don't cooperate, he'll have you killed. Her words stopped Blake cold. But the doubt remained. He recalled the nights she had vanished. The hushed phone calls. Was she telling the truth? Or was this just another lie? Suddenly, the window shattered. An assassin in black jumped in from the neighboring rooftop, his knife flashing in the lamplight. Mendez sends his regards, he roared. Mendez, no. It had to be Roman. Blake pushed Elena out of the way and lunged. The assassin swung his knife, but Blake ducked and kicked his hand with a taekwondo move, disarming him. The man fought back with a punch, hitting Blake's shoulder and sending a jolt of pain through his old injury. Elena screamed, drawing a pistol from her coat, but Blake waved her off. Don't he pivoted, striking the assassin's chest repeatedly with kung fu blows before getting him in a jiu-jitsu chokehold and smashing his head against the wooden table. A bone cracked loudly, but the assassin wriggled free, drew a small handgun, and fired a shot that whizzed past Blake's ear. Blood trickled from the wound as Blake lunged, sweeping the man's feet from under him and then punching him hard in the face. Elena shot the assassin in the leg, causing him to cry out in agony. But that's not all. Two other men climbed through the window, automatic guns firing continuously. Blake pulled Elena down to the floor, dodging bullets flying everywhere. Shattering furniture, he rolled over, drew his Glock, and shot back, hitting one in the shoulder. Blood splattering. The second man charged at Blake with a knife. Slashing at him, he blocked with his hand, used judo to throw him down, then stabbed the man's own knife into his shoulder. Elena stood up and shot the last man down with a precise shot to the chest. The apartment was now in ruins, broken glass. Blood splattered on the floor, the acrid smell of gunpowder filling the air. Blake was panting. Turning to Elena, they know you're here. Why? She lowered her head, her voice trembling. I was following you. The CIA boss ordered it, but I didn't betray you. Blake clenched his fists, a surge of rage swelling within him. She was the commander, but now he felt betrayed. Do you love me or the mission? He asked, his tone cold. Elena hugged him, but Blake pushed her away. Enough. We need evidence on Roman. She nodded, pulling a USB from her bag, data from Russia. The vault in Manhattan has plutonium hidden in the safe, but Roman knows the plan. Blake put away the USB, suspicion still burning. Was Elena a victim or part of the conspiracy? They left the apartment, blending into the New York night, the sound of police sirens echoing in the distance. Blake called Cole meet at the garage. Something's up. Cole was waiting, his eyes sharp. Her Blake was silent, but his hand was on his gun. The truth about Elena was gradually revealing itself, but every step led to greater danger. The heist at the vault was approaching, but with Elena by his side, an ally or an enemy, that question left Blake in doubt, his heart filled with tragedy and determination to seek underground justice. They continued planning under the dim yellow lights of the garage. Blake thought about the past with Elena, the human moments now overshadowed by suspicion. Cole patted his shoulder. If she plays dirty, I'll take care of it. Blake nodded, but his heart ached. The hunt for Roman Ivanov was now more complicated, with betrayal lurking from his own kin. The heist at the vault turned bloody smoke bombs, knife fights in the dark corridor, gunfire erupting. But the CIA support team didn't show up as planned. Cole pointed his gun at Blake's head amidst the pile of cash. You led me into a trap, didn't you? Under the dim yellow lights of the garage. Blake Ryder checked his Glock one last time, his heart pounding like a war drum. Elena Hart had vanished after the fight in the apartment, leaving behind a USB with data about Roman Ivanov's vault in Manhattan, hundreds of millions of dollars in dirty money mixed with plutonium. Blake glanced at Cole Fletcher, the man with the scarred cheek loading his handgun, his eyes filled with suspicion. Ready, at midnight. The smoke bomb at the entrance. I'll open the safe. You cover outside. Cole nodded, but his voice was cold. If Elena betrays, don't blame me for shooting first. They plunged into the New York night. An old truck rumbling through the streets lit by neon lights. The cold wind from the East River blowing fiercely. The skyscrapers in the financial district loomed, their glass walls shining under the crescent moon, hiding the basement where Roman concealed his deadly treasure. Blake parked in a back alley. Both donned black masks, sneaking in through the emergency exit. The air inside was stifling, the smell of damp concrete mingling with metal. Blake attached the electronic lock-picking device to the vault door. The beeping sound echoed. Then the steel door opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the corridor was pitch dark, only faint red emergency lights flickering. 6 guards patrolled, dressed in black uniforms, handguns hanging loosely. Blake signaled action. Cole rushed out first, delivering a taekwondo kick to the neck of the nearest man, who collapsed silently. The second man turned sharply, drawing his gun. But Blake was faster. He charged in, using kung fu to punch him in the stomach, then locked his arms with jiu-jitsu, smashing his head into the wall. Blood flowed, the sound of bones cracking crisp. The alarm blared suddenly, red lights flashing. Smoke bomb, Blake shouted, throwing a homemade bomb into the corridor. White smoke billowed up, covering everything in thick fog. Panicked screams echoed as the remaining guards charged blindly. Cole drew a dagger, slashing across the shoulder of one man. Blood splattering, he spun around, using judo to throw another down, stabbing his leg, causing him to scream. Blake fired 2 silenced shots, taking down the last man fumbling in the smoke. They ran into the vault room, the air heavy with the smell of paper money and chemicals. The massive steel safe stood tall. Blake attached the hacking device, the screen flashing the code. It's open. He pulled the door, revealing stacks of cash piled high, mixed with metal boxes containing plutonium, nuclear weapons from Russia. Take it all. Cole stuffed money into his bag, but his eyes were cold. Why hasn't your CIA team arrived? Elena promised to block the police. Right, Blake paused, a wave of unease washing over him. The plan was for the CIA support team to surround them after the heist, making them pretend to blind Roman. But the streets outside were eerily quiet. No sirens, no headlights. Something's wrong, Blake muttered, his heart aching at the thought of Elena. She promised to be outside. But now, betrayal suddenly. Footsteps echoed from the fading, smoke-filled corridor. 4 of Roman's assassins burst in, dressed in black, automatic guns firing continuously. Blake dove to dodge, pulling Cole down behind the safe. Bullets whizzed by, shattering the money boxes. Papers flying everywhere. They know. Cole roared, peeking out to shoot back, hitting one in the shoulder, blood staining the floor. Blake charged out, delivering a high kick to the wrist of the nearest man, sending the gun flying. He drew a knife, slashing at Blake, who dodged, using kung fu to land consecutive punches to the chest, then sweeping his leg to make him fall. The second man lunged at him with a dagger. A close combat fight erupted. The blades clashed with a ringing sound. Blake spun to block, stabbing back into his shoulder. Hot blood splattered onto his face, the metallic scent overwhelming. Cole stood up, firing 2 shots from 2 handguns, taking down the third man in an instant. The last man threw a grenade. Blake kicked it away. The explosion shaking the room. Flames bursting forth. They jumped out the back door, carrying heavy bags of cash, running through the burning corridor. "Get out!" Blake shouted. But Cole suddenly stopped, pointing his gun at Blake's head amidst the scattered money. "You led me into a trap." "Didn't you? Where's Elena? Where's the CIA team?" The air was tense as a drawn bowstring, flames licking around the walls, thick black smoke swirling. Blake raised his hands. "Calm down, I don't know. Elena. Maybe she betrayed us." His heart ached. Suspicion surging. Cole squeezed the trigger. "You're lying, I saw you call her." Blake lunged forward, delivering a kung fu punch to Cole's hand, sending the gun flying. The two struggled amidst the flames. Cole locked Blake's neck with jiu-jitsu, forcing him down to the floor. "Are you a double agent?" Blake twisted free, punching Cole in the face. Blood streaming from his nose. "I want to take down Roman just like you." "Stop." They stopped, panting, the fire creeping closer. Cole picked up the gun but lowered it. "All right, but if you play dirty, you die." They ran outside, jumping into the truck, speeding through the empty streets of Manhattan. The explosion from the building echoed, flames lighting up the night sky. Blake swerved the car, thinking about Elena. Love now turned to suspicion, rage burning within him. What is she hiding, he wondered. His heart filled with tragedy. They stopped at an empty lot on the outskirts, checking the bags of money and plutonium. Cole wiped blood from his face. "We have evidence. But Elena, she is the key." Blake nodded. Gripping his knife, "I will find her. And if she betrays, I will take care of it myself." The heist was successful, but at a steep price. Trust shattered, leading to a greater confrontation with Roman in Russia. Was Elena a victim or an enemy? That question lingered, pushing them deeper into the shadows. They escaped to Russia, breaking into Roman's villa in Moscow. Blake confronted the Russian mafia boss directly, only to discover Elena was also there, standing next to Roman with a cold smile. From the empty lot on the outskirts of New York, Blake Ryder and Cole Fletcher plunged into the darkness. The heavy truck loaded with bags of money and plutonium hidden in the trunk. Flames from the heist building still burned in the distance. Reflecting on the shattered windshield, Blake gripped the steering wheel tightly, a surge of anger and suspicion about Elena Hart rising within him. "She betrayed us," he muttered, his voice low with fury. Cole sat beside him, wiping blood from his face, his eyes sharp. "Go to Russia. Roman is in Moscow, in the suburban villa. I know the way." Blake nodded, knowing that running away was not an option. They had to confront face to face to end the nuclear weapon conspiracy. They flew to Russia on a clandestine flight, crossing the border with fake passports from Dmitri's underlings. Moscow welcomed them with heavy falling snow, the biting cold cutting through flesh. The grey buildings looming under the overcast sky. Roman Ivanov's villa lay in the suburbs, surrounded by high walls and snow-covered pine forests. Cameras scanning continuously like devilish eyes. Blake and Cole hid in the woods, their breath freezing into mist. At midnight, "Cut the power. I'll break into Roman's room," Blake whispered. Cole nodded. "I'll cover outside. But if Elena is there, you will hesitate." They waited until nightfall, the snow falling lightly, the wind howling through the pine branches like a whisper of death. Blake cut the power line with pliers. The villa's lights went out, and the alarm blared. Cole rushed out first, delivering a taekwondo kick to the neck of the guard, who collapsed into the snow. The second man drew his gun, but Blake leaped from the shadows, using kung fu to punch him in the stomach, then locked his arms with jiu-jitsu, smashing his head into the stone wall. Red blood spread on the white snow. the metallic scent mingling with the cold. Inside the villa, the corridor was pitch dark with luxurious red carpets. The smell of red wine and Russian cigarettes wafting through the air. 4 assassins burst out from the living room, dressed in black suits, knives and guns at the ready. Cole jumped in, slashing his dagger into the shoulder of the first man. Blood splattering, he spun around, using judo to throw down the second man, stabbing his leg, causing him to scream. Blake fired 2 silenced shots, taking down the third man in an instant. The last man lunged at him with a knife. A close combat fight erupted. The blades clashed with a ringing sound. Blake dodged, delivering a high kick to the wrist, then punching straight to the face with kung fu. Bones cracked. He collapsed. They ran upstairs, the sound of heavy footsteps echoing. Roman's room was at the end of the corridor. A carved wooden door. Blake pushed the door open, gun aimed straight ahead. Inside, Roman Ivanov sat in a leather chair, sipping vodka, his deep black eyes glimmering under the dim candlelight. He was large, scarred, with a heavy Russian accent. Agent Ryder. Brave indeed, but you are late. Blake growled. The money and plutonium in New York are yours. End this. Roman. But then, from the darkness beside him, Elena Hart stepped out, wearing a tight black dress, standing next to Roman with a cold smile. Blake froze, his heart aching like a knife. Elena, you. Why? She looked at him, her eyes distant. Blake, you don't understand. Roman is not the enemy. The CIA is. Roman laughed heartily. She has been mine for a long time. The mission in Moscow. She chose me. Anger surged. Blake charged forward, but 3 assassins jumped in through the window, guns firing continuously. Cole rushed from the hallway, shooting 2 shots that hit one in the shoulder, blood staining the wooden floor. Blake dodged bullets, delivering a taekwondo kick to the chest of the nearest man, then using jiu-jitsu to lock his neck, smashing him into the table. Elena drew her gun, aiming at Blake. Stop, you will die in vain. But Cole lunged in, throwing down the second man with judo, punching him in the face with kung fu, knocking him unconscious. The chaotic battle bullets flying, knives slashing, the sound of breaking glass echoing. Blake confronted Elena, pushing her against the wall. You betrayed. Why? She struggled free, her eyes red. The CIA forced me. Roman promised to protect you, but her words felt like a knife. Blake punched the last assassin, taking him down with a spinning kick. Roman stood up, drawing his gun. You stole wrong. The plutonium is for the CIA, money laundering across the border. Cole pulled Blake to run, throwing a smoke grenade into the room. The smoke billowed thickly. They jumped through the window, landing in the soft snow. Gunfire chased after them, bullets whizzing past Blake's ears. They ran through the pine forest, snow flying everywhere, the wind howling like a demon. Cole shot back, taking down one man, chasing them. Elena is a double agent, he shouted. Blake remained silent, his heart filled with tragedy. Love now turned to betrayal, rage burning within. They stopped at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Moscow, panting, snow sticking to their clothes. Blake checked the USB from Elena data, proving Roman colluded with the CIA official. Cole wiped blood. She hid it from you. What now? Blake gripped his knife. Find the truth. If Elena plays dirty, I will take care of it. They continued planning under the dim light. The truth about Elena and Roman was beginning to unfold, but each step led to greater danger. Was Elena a victim or part of the conspiracy? That question pushed them deeper into the darkness of Russia, where underground justice awaited with blood and fire. In the abandoned factory on the outskirts of Moscow, Blake and Cole were surrounded by dozens of assassins. They had gathered USB evidence of Roman's collusion with a high-ranking CIA official. But the price was Cole being shot and severely injured. Blake Ryder leaned against the cold concrete wall of the abandoned factory. Snow, gently falling through the pockmarked tin roof, landing on the dusty, rusty floor. The dim moonlight filtered through the broken window, illuminating Cole Fletcher's face, now pale from blood loss from a shoulder wound. After the break-in at Roman Ivanov's villa last night, they had escaped. But the image of Elena Hart, standing next to Roman, haunted Blake like a deep cut. She chose him, he thought, filled with anger and pain. Cole groaned softly, pressing his hand tightly against the wound. Blake. The USB. Check it. Blake nodded, plugged the USB into an old laptop. The screen flickering with data, secret transactions between Roman and a CIA official named Harlan Voss, laundering money through nuclear weapons from Russia. But before he could read further, a noise came from outside the door, the sound of leather shoes crunching on snow. The click of guns being loaded. Blake shut the laptop, drew his Glock. They've found us. Cole struggled to stand. A dagger in hand, dozens of them. Roman won't spare us. This factory on the outskirts of Moscow had once been a hiding place for plutonium, according to the USB data. But now it was a death trap. The main door burst open, and dozens of Roman's assassins stormed in, dressed in black, automatic weapons at the ready, faces concealed under hoods. Blake pulled Cole behind a rusty machine, his heart pounding. "Coordinate," he whispered. The first assassin rushed in, firing continuously, bullets whizzing by, shattering metal pipes. Blake peeked out and fired back, hitting the closest man twice in the chest. Blood splattering on the cold floor. Cole, despite his injury, delivered a taekwondo kick from the shadows, hitting the second man's leg, causing him to fall. He lunged forward, using judo to choke the man, twisting hard. The sound of breaking bones echoed amidst the gunfire. The battle erupted fiercely. Smoke from gunpowder filled the air, the smell of blood mingling with rust. Blake rolled to dodge bullets, charging into a group of 3 men, delivering a series of kung fu punches to the first man's chest, then sweeping the second man off his feet. The third man drew a knife, slashing horizontally. Blake dodged just in time, using jiu-jitsu to lock the man's arm, stabbing his own knife into his shoulder. Hot blood splattered on Blake's face, but he did not stop, firing a shot into the head of the fallen man. Cole, from behind, fired 2 handguns simultaneously, taking down 4 men, surrounding them. But a bullet grazed his shoulder, reopening an old wound, blood gushing out. Cole Blake shouted, rushing to shield him. He delivered a spinning kick to the wrist of the shooter, sending the gun flying, then punched him squarely in the face with a kung fu strike, shattering his jaw. Cole knelt, gasping, "I'm fine. Get the USB. Go." The remaining assassins, about 10 of them, closed in, throwing grenades. Blake kicked a grenade away, the explosion shaking the factory, flames erupting from the corner of the room, illuminating their fierce faces. He pulled Cole to run through the narrow hallway, bullets chasing them like rain. One man charged at them with a knife. Engaging in close combat, the blade clashed with a clang. Blake spun to block, delivered a punch to the stomach, then swept the man's legs, sending him into the fire. They burst out the back door, the snow falling thicker, the wind howling through the pine forest. But the team of assassins was hot on their heels, shooting from a distance. Cole was shot in the leg, collapsing onto the white snow now stained with red. "Leave me," he roared. But Blake pulled him up. No, leaving a teammate, he fired back, taking down 2 men, then dragged Cole into the woods. The gunfire faded, but Cole's wound was severe, blood soaking through his jacket. Stopping behind a pine tree, Blake bandaged Cole's wound with torn fabric from his shirt, his hands trembling slightly from the cold and worry. The USB proves Harlan Voss, the CIA boss, colluded with Roman. They're laundering money through plutonium. Cole smiled weakly. So Elena? She knows. She's part of it. Blake clenched his fists, anger swelling within him. Elena, the woman he loved, was now a traitor. But why did she choose Roman? That question pained him, mixed with a determination to seek justice. Cole groaned softly. Blake, if I die, you take down Roman for me. My brother died because of him. Blake nodded, his eyes burning. I promise. But you will live. They trudged through the snow, the cold wind biting, heading towards a secret base in Moscow. The USB data was the key, but the cost, Cole's injury, made Blake realize this hunt was not just a mission, but a personal vendetta, full of tragedy and humanity. They arrived at a shabby hotel. Blake called a doctor through an encrypted phone. In the dark room, the smell of antiseptic filled the air. Cole lay still after having his wound stitched. Blake reviewed the USB transactions worth millions. Plutonium transferred from Russia to the U.S. Signed by Voss. The CIA is protecting Roman, he muttered, anger rising. Did Elena know everything he thought about the moments spent with her, now overshadowed by lies? Cole woke up, his voice weak. What's next? Back to New York. Confront Voss. Blake nodded. Yes. But Elena? I have to find her. Cole patted his shoulder. If she plays dirty, don't hesitate. Blake fell silent, his heart conflicted, evidence in hand. But Cole's injury reminded him every step came at a cost of blood. The fight against Roman and the CIA was now bigger, pushing them into a deep darkness, where underground justice awaited with fire and snow. Back in New York, Blake confronted Elena. She admitted to being coerced, but still hid a greater secret. That very night, Roman's team of assassins descended upon the city, turning Manhattan into a battlefield. Blake Ryder stepped out of JFK Airport under the gray sky of New York, the cold wind from the Atlantic blowing in, carrying the smell of salt and exhaust. Cole Fletcher limped beside him, his shoulder and leg still aching, but he gritted his teeth and endured. After the battle at the abandoned factory on the outskirts of Moscow, they had flown back to America with the USB evidence, a transaction between Roman Ivanov and Harlan Voss, a senior CIA official. Voss is the key, Blake muttered, filled with rage. Elena Hart, the woman he once loved, was now the biggest question mark. Did she know about Voss, or was she part of the money laundering conspiracy through plutonium from Russia? They drove into Manhattan, through the streets shimmering with neon lights, skyscrapers reflecting on the wet pavement after the rain. Blake stopped the car in front of a secret apartment in Midtown, where Elena used to meet. Cole stood guard outside, his eyes scanning the bustling crowd. If she plays dirty, to shoot her. Blake nodded, stepping into the dark elevator, the metallic scent filling the air. His heart raced, a mix of anger and pain. Elena, once a support, could now be a traitor. The apartment door opened. Elena stood there under the dim yellow light, wearing a black coat, her eyes red as if she had just cried. Blake, you're back, she whispered, her voice trembling. He closed the door, aiming his gun at her. Speak. Who is Voss? The USB proves he colluded with Roman. You know everything, don't you? Elena stepped back. Her hands clenched. I was forced. Voss is my boss. He protects Roman to launder money. Trading plutonium for CIA's secret operations. I said. I had to cooperate to save you. But her gaze averted. Hiding a greater secret, perhaps her feelings for Roman Nair. Or something worse. Blake grabbed her shoulders. His voice cold. You stood next to him in Moscow. Was that duty or love? Elena cried. It was a trap. Voss forced me. But I hid one thing. Voss plans to kill you to cover it up. Her words stunned Blake. A surge of conflict rising within him. To believe or not, he released her. But doubt still burned. Prove it. Call Voss here. Suddenly, the sound of shattering glass echoed from the window. Roman's team of assassins, 5 men in black, automatic weapons, jumped in from the neighboring rooftop. Roman sends his regards, the leader growled. Blake pushed Elena to the floor, dodging bullets that whizzed by. Shattering furniture, he rolled, shooting 2 rounds into the chest of the first man, blood staining the wooden floor. Elena drew her gun, taking down the second man with a precise shot to the head. Cole burst in through the front door, delivering a taekwondo kick to the chest of the third man, sending him crashing down. The fourth man drew a knife. Charging at Cole, close combat erupted. The blade slashed horizontally. Cole dodged, using judo to lock the man's arm, stabbing the knife back into his stomach. Hot blood splattered, the stench overwhelming. The last man fired at Blake, a bullet grazing his shoulder, causing a sharp pain. Blake charged, delivering a series of kung fu punches to the chest, then sweeping the man's legs, causing him to fall and hit his head on the table. Bones cracked. He was knocked out. The apartment was in ruins, shattered glass. Blood splattered. The smell of gunpowder thick in the air. Elena trembled. They know I'm here. Voss betrayed us. Blake pulled her up. What else are you hiding? Speak. She bowed her head. Voss is my biological father. He used me to control Roman. That secret hit Blake like a knife. Stunned, Elena not only betrayed him but was also bound by blood. His heart ached. Anger rising. Which side do you choose? Before she could answer, the sound of sirens echoed from the street. A larger team of assassins was descending. Blake looked out the window. 3 black SUVs barreled in, filled with Roman's men, turning Manhattan into a battlefield. Run, he shouted, pulling Elena and Cole out the back door. They raced down the stairs, bullets flying up from below, shattering concrete walls. Outside on the street, New York was in chaos, neon lights flashing, panicked crowds running in all directions. The team of assassins, 10 men, jumped out of the SUVs, firing continuously. Blake ducked behind a car, firing back, taking down 2 men with shots to the chest. Cole, despite his injury, peeked out and fired from 2 handguns, taking down 3 more men. Blood staining the wet pavement, Elena charged in, delivering a high kick to the wrist of 1 man, sending his gun flying, then using jiu-jitsu to choke him, slamming his head into a car. 1 man charged at Blake with a knife, slashing at him. He blocked, engaging in a fierce knife fight. The blade clashed with a clang. He spun to dodge, delivering a kung fu punch to the face. The man fell, but a grenade rolled towards them. Cole kicked it away. The explosion shook the street, flames erupting from the SUV, illuminating the fierce face of the remaining assassin. They ran through a dark alley, blending into the shadows of Manhattan. The sound of police sirens fading away, stopping in an abandoned garage. Blake turned to Elena. Your father, Voss, do you know what plutonium is used for? She cried. To make bombs. Sell to terrorists. I wanted to stop, but Voss forced me. Blake tightened his grip on the knife. Filled with tragedy, Love had now become a burden. But he had to choose justice. Cole patted his shoulder. She's the problem. But we have the USB. Now, let's take down Voss. They continued planning under the dim yellow lights of the garage. Elena's secret was revealed. But Roman's assassins were still lurking. Blake thought about the past with her. The human moments now overshadowed by lies and blood. If you lie again, I'll deal with it myself, he said coldly. The battle had now expanded, leading to the final hideout in Russia, where underground justice awaited with fire and snow. Was Elena a victim or an enemy? That question hung in the air, pushing them deeper into darkness. Blake and Cole infiltrated Roman's final base in an underground bunker beneath the East River. Russia. A 15-second timer bomb. Elena appeared with a gun aimed at Blake. This time she had to choose love or duty. Heavy snow fell on the banks of the East River. Russia. The dim moonlight reflecting on the frozen water, casting a cold shadow over the bunker, Roman Ivanov's final base. Blake Ryder and Cole Fletcher sneaked through the barbed wire fence, their breaths turning to mist in the biting air. The USB from the Moscow factory contained evidence of Harlan Voss, Elena Hart's father, colluding with Roman to launder money and traffic plutonium. But after the battle in Manhattan, Blake was no longer sure if Elena was an ally or an enemy. Cole, his shoulder wound still bleeding, tightened his grip on the dagger. If she shows up, shoot her. Don't hesitate. Blake nodded. But his heart ached. Love for Elena now mixed with anger and hope. The bunker lay deep underground, with a thick steel door secured by a coded lock. Blake attached a hacking device. The screen flickering. The door opening with a heavy hiss. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of chemicals and gunpowder. Yellow lights, illuminating metal barrels filled with stacked plutonium. Roman's elite guard, 12 men in tactical gear, armed with automatic weapons, patrolled the concrete hallway. Blake signaled move silently. Cole lunged out, delivering a taekwondo kick to the neck of the nearest man. He collapsed without a sound. Blake emerged from the shadows, using kung fu to punch the second man in the stomach, then locking his arm with jiu-jitsu, slamming his head into the wall. Blood pooled on the cold floor. The sound of bones cracking echoed. Alarms blared, red lights flashing. "Smoke bomb!" Blake shouted, throwing a homemade bomb. White smoke billowed, covering the hallway. The assassins panicked, firing blindly. Cole drew his dagger, slashing at one man's shoulder. Blood spraying. He spun around, using judo to throw another man down, stabbing his leg, causing him to scream. Blake fired 3 silenced shots, taking down 3 men in an instant. They ran through the hallway, dodging bullets flying by, shattering metal barrels. In the central control room, Roman stood on a high platform, dressed in black, his eyes glinting like a demon. Beside him, Elena Hart was tied up, her eyes frantic. But the gun in her hand was aimed straight at Blake as the ropes were removed. "Blake, stop!" she shouted, her voice trembling. Roman laughed loudly. "She's mine!" "Where's the USB?" Ryder Blake tightened his grip on his gun, a surge of conflict rising within him. "Elena. Who do you choose, me or him?" Before she could answer, a ticking sound echoed. A 15-second timer bomb appeared on the large screen. Red lights counting down. 15 seconds. "This bunker will explode," Roman roared, drawing his gun aimed at Cole. The remaining assassins, 5 men, charged in, firing continuously. Blake dove to dodge, pulling Elena down to the floor, bullets shattering the control panel. Cole fired 2 shots from 2 handguns, taking down 2 men, blood staining the floor. Blake, "Disable the bomb!" he shouted, lunging at the third man, delivering a kung fu punch to the chest, then sweeping his legs, causing him to fall. Blake ran to the control panel, hands shaking as he typed the hack code. 10 seconds. 9. Elena stood up. Gun still aimed at him. Blake. I'm being forced, Voss ordered it, but her gaze wavered, as if she was struggling. Blake growled, choose. Elena, love or duty. 7. 6. He entered the final code. But it was wrong. The bomb was still running. Roman laughed loudly. Let's die together. 4 seconds. Cole lunged at Roman, delivering a taekwondo kick to his hand, knocking the gun away. He locked Roman's neck with judo, punching repeatedly in the face, blood streaming from his nose. 3 seconds. Blake entered another code, hands trembling, sweat running down. Elena suddenly turned her gun, shooting the last assassin, saving Cole. Blake. I choose you, she shouted, rushing to help enter the code. 2 seconds. 1. The screen froze. The bomb shut off, the green light blinking. But Roman twisted free, pulling a knife and stabbing Cole in the shoulder. Blood splattering. Cole screamed, punching back at Roman, causing him to stagger. Blake rushed in, delivering a spinning kick to Roman's neck, then used jiu-jitsu to lock his arms, forcing him down to the floor. It's over. Elena knelt beside Cole, bandaging his wound. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. Voss forced me to be a double agent. Blake pulled Roman up, pressing the gun to his head. Where's Voss? Is he in Russia? Roman sneered, blood dripping from his lip. He's in New York, waiting for you. But you can't beat the CIA. Blake knocked him out, tying his hands. Elena trembled. Voss knows everything. He will kill us. Blake looked at her, heart-aching but determined. We have the USB. Voss will pay. They dragged Roman outside, running through the now devastated underground, flames burning. Blood splattered, the smell of gunpowder thick in the air. Another team of assassins appeared from afar, opening fire. Blake shot back, taking down 2 of them. Cole, despite his injuries, poked his head out to shoot from a distance, taking down 3 more. Elena delivered a high kick, taking down the last one with jiu-jitsu. They jumped into the truck, speeding through the snow of Moscow, leaving the underground in darkness, stopping at an empty lot. Blake checked the USB, evidence enough to take down Voss. Cole gasped. Elena saved me. She made the right choice. Blake nodded. But doubt still simmered. She chose you. But Voss is her father. Elena cried, I will confront him. Blake tightened the knife. Filled with tragic resolve, justice was near. But the final battle with Voss in New York would be bloody. Would Elena truly stand by him? The question hung in the air, pushing them deeper into darkness, where fire and snow intertwined. The final battle erupted amidst the fire and snow of Moscow. Blake had to face Roman, Elena, and the horrifying truth about his own mission at the same time. A bloody ending left a lingering question: who was truly the traitor? Thick snow fell on an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Moscow, the neon lights from afar casting red streaks like blood on the rusty walls. Blake Ryder stood in the shadows, his breath turning to mist, gripping the Glock tightly, his sharp eyes scanning the heavy steel door. Cole Fletcher, despite his shoulder and leg wounds still bleeding, stood beside him, 2 loaded handguns ready, a smirk hiding his pain. Elena Hart followed behind, her eyes red, the gun trembling slightly in her hand. The USB evidence, the transaction between Roman Ivanov and Harlan Voss. Her father was the key to ending it all. But Blake sensed the deadly trap waiting. Are you ready? Cole asked, his voice hoarse. Blake nodded. Take down Voss. Or we don't leave Russia. The warehouse door burst open. The air inside suffocating with the smell of gunpowder and chemicals. Roman stood on a high platform, dressed in a black suit. Next to Voss, a thin figure, eyes cold as ice, holding an automatic gun. A team of assassins, 15 in tactical gear, surrounded them. Guns aimed straight. Agent Ryder. Voss sneered. Your USB belongs to the CIA. Roman is just a puppet. Elena growled. Father. Stop. But Voss shook his head. You betrayed me. Elena. Blake signaled, and the battle erupted. Cole charged in first, delivering a taekwondo kick to the chest of the nearest assassin, who fell. Blake fired twice, taking down 2 men, blood splattering on the cold concrete floor. Elena drew her gun, shooting one in the shoulder, but her eyes wavered as she looked at Voss. The assassins opened fire, bullets flying, shattering a metal container holding plutonium. Blake dove to dodge, delivering a series of kung fu punches to one's chest. Then, sweeping his leg to knock him down, Cole used judo to lock the second one's neck, stabbing him in the leg. Screams echoing. Roman jumped down, pulling a knife to stab Blake. He dodged just in time. Engaging in a fierce close combat, the blade slashed horizontally, clashing with a metallic clang. Blake spun around, delivering a high kick to Roman's wrist. Sending the knife flying, he roared, lunging to punch, hitting Blake's shoulder, causing sharp pain in his old wound. Blake countered with jiu-jitsu, locking Roman's neck, slamming his head into the wall. Blood flowed, but Roman twisted free, laughing loudly. The CIA needs me. Voss will kill everyone. Voss activated the timer bomb on the control panel. 12 seconds. The red light counting down. Let's die with this place, he shouted. Cole shot down the last 3 assassins, but was hit in the chest, falling down, blood staining the snow. Cole, Blake yelled, rushing to the control panel, hands shaking as he typed the hack code. 10 seconds. 9. Elena ran over, shooting at a man aiming at Blake. But Voss pointed his gun at her. You chose wrong. Elena 8. 7. Blake entered the code. Wrong. The bomb was still running. Elena knelt beside Cole, bandaging his wound, crying Blake. I believe in you. 6. 5. Blake typed another code. Sweat streaming down. Voss fired a shot, grazing Blake's ear. Blood flowing. 4. 3. Elena suddenly lunged at Voss, delivering a high kick to his hand, knocking the gun away. Father. Enough, she screamed, locking Voss's neck with jiu-jitsu. 2. 1. Blake entered the final code. The bomb stopped, the green light blinking, but Roman lunged forward, stabbing Elena in the back. She collapsed, blood soaking her shirt. No, Blake screamed, charging at Roman, delivering a series of kung fu punches to his chest, then locking his neck, breaking his arm. Roman howled, collapsing. Blake turned to Voss, shooting him in the leg. You will pay for everything, Voss sneered. The CIA is bigger than you think. Ryder. Blake knocked him out, tying his hands. Cole, despite his serious injuries, crawled over, whispering, It's over. My brother can rest. Blake pulled Elena into his arms. She was weak. I'm sorry. I love you. Her eyes closed. Breath stopped. Blake screamed. Heart-wrenching pain. Snow falling over blood and corpses, he stood up, eyes red, pocketing the USB. We won, he said to Cole, his voice deep with tragedy. They dragged Voss and Roman outside, handing them over to the approaching Moscow police. The USB was sent to the international press, exposing the CIA network and Roman, but the price was too high. Elena sacrificed. Blake's heart shattered. Cole patted his shoulder. She chose right in the end. Blake threw the CIA badge into the snow. I'm done with this game. But his eyes still burned. The question hanging in the air, who was truly the traitor in the CIA's larger game? They left Moscow, walking under the dawn light. Two reluctant friends bound by blood and fire. Cole smiled weakly. Next time. Don't let me get shot. Blake nodded, not sure. They held hands, merging into the darkness, ready for new battles, leaving behind a fallen empire and a horrifying truth: underground justice always comes at the cost of blood.